Hello and welcome to our webinar today. This is Revolutionizing Battery Analytics, a practical introduction to Micantis. I'm Jill Pastana, the founder and CEO of Pastana Solutions and the creator of the YouTube channel Across the Nanoverse. And it's my pleasure today to host the Micantis team that I have here with me. And today we're going to be going through battery data analytics and management, the state of the art in this space. And so as you guys are joining in this session here, I'd love to hear from the audience, what are your current tools that you're using around battery data management and analytics? We'd love to hear any questions you have about this topic as we're here live. So feel free at any point to ask a question in the chat, and we will answer it at the end during the Q&A, if not before then. And if you're tuning into this recorded session, then we'll, of course, respond to your question and get back to you as soon as possible. But feel free to reach out to Micantis. You can see the email there, info@micantis.io there on that slide. So today we have a very interesting agenda. We're going to introduce the team, walk through the Micantis platform a little bit so you get a feel for it. We're going to touch on industry challenges that the team are seeing. And we're going to finish with a couple of case studies from real-life battery companies that are using this advanced analytics platform. So it's my pleasure to introduce the Micantis team. And Howard, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Howard Alt. I'm the president and CEO of Micantis. And my background is in the computer business, right? So I've spent a career building computers and storage systems and lots of software systems, that kind of thing. And I'm new to the battery world, but the battery world has curious parallels to computer storage that we could talk about another time.
Thanks, Howard. And Jonathan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jonathan Auerbach. I'm CTO at Micantis. And I have an academic background that's in mechanical engineering and power electronics and some material science. And I've been writing software for modeling physical systems of all kinds, particularly energy systems, for about 10 years.
Wow. And Michaela.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michaela DeLuca. I'm a product manager here at Micantis. I'm a chemical engineer by training. I have a PhD from University of Florida, which actually focused on reaction engineering. And once I finished school, I really wanted to switch over to the clean energy sector. So I've been in batteries for about 2 years now and previously worked in R&D developing cathode materials.
Awesome. Wow. Such an assortment of skill sets. And Howard, it's funny how you say you're new to batteries, but Micantis has been around for quite some time now, right?
Oh, yes. Well, that's a good point. So we've been around for about 4 years now. We started in 2019 / 2020. I guess that's 4 years. We're at the end of 2024, which is kind of surprising to me for some reason. But, here we are. Yeah, and so in 2019, we were working with a fellow, Ed Williams, who is the CEO of Psionic Battery, and he had a battery data analytics problem, several of them, and he had a solution at the time for battery data analytics that was out of his price range, he said. So, he was spending too much money and he didn't get what he wanted to get. And so he and Jonathan and I have known each other since a previous job of ours doing energy systems modeling. So he turned to us and said, hey, is this really that hard? Can you guys reproduce it? And so we sort of launched down the path to reproduce it. So Psionic kind of got us our start in the business. We stopped using the other platform. We replaced that in about 9 months. So that level of functionality was pretty straightforward. But there are all kinds of other fun problems that are actually quite hard to solve. And so we're off, boiling those oceans right now. And, good technology, good hard problems to solve, and we love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I, got to talking with you and learning more about the platform, I saw wow, this can do so many things, not just for a company like Psionic for cell manufacturing, but other companies as well. And you've really developed the product in a way that flows with what the customer in the battery space wants. And that's really important when it comes to battery data analytics, because there's so many unique battery specific challenges that companies need.
You bet. So we work with our companies, our customers and prospects every day, looking at very specific things that they need. We add those to the product, so the product has grown very organically. So we're not a venture-backed company. For example, we're backed by our customers, right? And so every month we work for our customers and add new features and deliver new releases. And so we really try to stay in touch with our customers and get them exactly what they need when they need it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Howard. I know you're a busy person and have different things to accomplish today, but really appreciate you tuning in to introduce yourself and the company. And we'll shift the conversation to Jonathan and Michaela now.
Great.
Thanks, Howard.
Great team. Thanks, Jill. And thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks. Yeah, so Jonathan, getting into what Howard's talking about, Micantis' origin story. So what's your philosophy and unique perspective on providing this battery data management and analytics solution for the battery industry?
So the primary goal is to free the engineers so that they can focus on solving the hard sort of electrochemistry and material science problems without being distracted by details of data analytics. So we do that by providing a platform that is filled with analytical tools that all are guided by sort of industry best practices, but are also flexible so that everyone has a different focus of their analyses and sort of slightly different ways of doing things. And so we've compromised on making it as flexible as possible while still keeping everyone in bounds and sort of sticking to industry best practices for analysis methods.
Yeah, so it's really built around the customer, around the battery company that needs it for their specific use cases, because depending on your cell chemistry, cell format, right, you have different data that's most important to you and how you want to analyze it, right? So your approach is to make sure that that customer gets what they need, right?
Yes, exactly. Make sure they get what they need without a lot of sort of distracting choices and options about things that people shouldn't do or never want to do.
Yeah, and that's something that working in the battery industry as a battery scientist and engineer, Michaela and I have some experience with that. And Michaela, so from your experience in working in these environments that are managing this battery data, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing when it comes to this problem?
Yeah, so definitely having been in battery R&D, I have seen firsthand all of the struggles associated with cell testing, compiling the data, analyzing the data. Micantis offers so much to help people do that seamlessly. The program comes ready-made with all of the battery analytics features that you could want. It solves the problem that I've had, and I'm sure so many of us have had, where everyone analyzing data does it in a different Jupyter notebook or a different Excel sheet. And somehow everyone always seems to have slightly different answers. And then you come to a meeting and nobody agrees, and you have to spend another few hours figuring out what's going wrong and how people are getting different results. And so by using Micantis, you can unify the group, make sure everyone is looking at the same data and that the data is analyzed in a consistent way. And it really alleviates all of that time-consuming process of just data wrangling, compiling, and analytics. And beyond that, there are just so many cool features that I wish I had when I was working in R&D, automated graphing, things like that. It's really, really cool.
Totally. And it's like there's so many new people joining the battery industry, right, who come from different disciplines. And so oftentimes when somebody joins a team, they're used to doing things a certain way, or maybe they learned something in graduate school. And so you're right that you may have like a bunch of versions of a Python code to do an analysis, but which one is the one that everyone should be using? And how are you going to streamline that? Have you seen that issue in offices that you've worked in?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think having an established kind of ground truth of the way that we are going to look at this data and we're going to interpret these results and do this is such an important thing that will save companies so much time. And just kind of having that incorporated on the Micantis platform where, you know, all of the software engineering needs are taken care of by us, it really lets you free up your time and just focus on what matters, analyzing data and coming to results and decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for your perspective. And I just want to share for those tuning in who maybe are new to the battery industry, right? There's so many different parts of the battery value chain, as we call it, from the raw materials when we're sourcing those battery materials all the way through to manufacturing of components of the cells, the cell assembly, into recycling. And when it comes to the trends that we're seeing in the industry today, a lot of the kind of scaling of production of cells that we need to create this supply chains of batteries, right? The foundation of this is that data exchange. There's mandates from like the EU battery directive on traceability, and there's different compliance that battery companies need to achieve. But also, at this time, battery companies are facing immense pressures to ramp up quickly in a short amount of time and at low cost, like on a budget. And so what we're seeing is companies are, R&D teams are trying to move quickly, but then they get tangled up in their data when that's not being managed to begin with. And Micantis really solves this problem from the component manufacturers through battery assembly mostly, where you have battery cell data on cycle testers, and you're tracing the materials through the process, you're tracing your manufacturing process. And then once the batteries are being assembled into a product, this tool is really powerful for QA and making sure that you're creating the safe and quality batteries in a high throughput facility even. So we have a couple case studies where we'll dive deeper into these topics, but I want to really underscore as we transition into walking through the platform itself that battery industry companies right now are learning a lot of hard lessons. Like, this is recorded in early December of 2024. We just saw the issues with Northvolt kind of take hold of it, which is unfortunate. And just that's to say that these companies are learning a lot of hard lessons across their full operations. And Micantis is really that platform that has learned and knows the lessons around battery data, and it can help overcome that and bridge you from A to Z without having to learn all the lessons along the way. So, Jonathan, tell us more about this platform and tell us more about, like, what is this capable of? What does this look like?
Yeah, so it helps you, of course, analyze data as it comes off the testers. So data, comes off in near real time. So there's no manual steps to go see what's going on in the lab. It handles data at any scale. So it doesn't matter whether you have 100 channels or 1,000 channels or 10,000 channels. The platform is the same. So as your company scales, as your manufacturing pilot line gets bigger, anything like that, the platform can stay the same.
Absolutely. And that what we're getting into is this multi-site visibility, making sure it's streamlined across your operations. And so it's cloud-based and it's secure, right? There's a lot of concerns about, well, is it secure? Is my data going to be safe?
Yeah, there's we use sort of industry standard enterprise level security, and there are multiple sort of options for ways that customers can up level their security even further from so we host in Azure. There's all the standard enterprise security associated with that, but customers can run in their own tenant with their own IT policies. There's lots of ways that customers really can have control over their data with our platform.
Excellent. Yeah, and let's get into the features so that people can actually see what does this look like when we're using the platform. So from a battery scientist perspective, I'm sure you can recognize a few of these plots here, but like Jonathan and Michaela, could you walk us through what we're looking at with this graphing and analyzing features?
Sure. So, the graph on the left is, is a cycle life graph. This is, something you could make in Excel theoretically or with Python. But, ours, it takes about 1 second to generate. You can look at, max voltage, min voltage, capacity, energy, percent or absolute. You can, and every time I refresh, the graph, I get the latest data off the server live from the lab. So it doesn't matter where I am in the world. I can produce the same graph as my peers. I can share this graph with a URL link. I can have a company standard template for producing, we produce the graph this way with max temperature and, relative discharge energy. However your company likes to do it, we can standardize that across your company. So there's a bunch of features that, although there's no magic, these are things that are possible to do at small scale with other tools. Once you get to, commercial operation where these things really just have to happen automatically, things like cycle life graphs are easy enough with Micantis.
Absolutely. And I mean, just looking here, these are just a few cells that we have here. It's as simple as selecting the data from this table on the left, right? And then you bring that down and hit make graph with the X and Y axes you want. And then you come out with that graph that you've seen. You can manipulate the XY axis and view it as you want, correct?
Absolutely. So it's, super intuitive to use. People pick it up very quickly. And there are a bunch of workflow tools like favorite graphs and things where sort of you can customize the tool to your specific workflows, and that saves you even more time.
I love that. Rather than having to start from scratch each time and like create a new graph, you could just save your favorites and use them over and over, kind of like a template, right?
Yeah. And so the graph on the right is a screenshot from our formation analysis tool. And so this is a great example of a tool that was 100% driven by customer need. We had multiple customers that said, we run all these formations and these are the kinds of data that we want to pull out. And we've got, 47 cells or 150 cells. And we want to, look at how, first cycle Coulombic efficiency compares and, all these sort of normal things. And we need this kind of graph and that kind of table. And that tool, turns out, is useful for a lot of people. And that's the formation analysis tool you see on the right.
Awesome. Yeah. And just moving on. So in addition to graphing the data you have, right, this integrates, excuse me, I'm forgetting my words, integrates with your actual equipment, right? And so what are we looking at in these views?
So on the left is the lab dashboard. And so what we see are a whole bunch of tester channels. Each row in that table, it reflects a channel on a tester in the lab. So I can see my progress. I can see, current temperatures of my cell if I'm measuring that data. And I can sort of really see what's going on in the lab, what's working, what's not working, and utilization and things like that. So if I, need to start a new test and I need to know, what channels are open, I can take a glance here and know exactly where to go to put my cell on test. Then on the right is our test management dashboard. And so that, lets us look at the progress of our sort of standardized test protocol. So if I have, a batch of cells that I'm running through a standard suite of tests or, any variation of my standard tests, I can sort of keep track of those on the right. And, we can configure specifications so that, you sort of automatically know when things are passing and failing spec, and getting real-time updates on those without having to go manually look at the data every morning or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like this accessibility to equipment monitoring is really cool. I mean, even if you have a system in place to look at curves themselves and data from the equipment, if something looks weird, my experience has been it's a Slack message or an email to the lab technician and they go look at the equipment and try to figure out what's wrong. You usually don't have kind of visibility into that. So it's really, really cool that it's all in one spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, that brings us to, there's so much custom views you can have on your data, right? So talk about what are auto tables?
Yeah, so on the left there, we've got the what we call the cells table. And so that, so auto tables are configured sort of per customer. So your whole company can have a set of automatically calculated metrics, sort of KPIs that are relevant to your company, and those get updated continually. So, if you want to look at, cycle 200 retained capacity or energy for every cell that you test, every relevant cell, we can configure that, and that'll appear here. Or cycle 147, right? It's completely customizable per customer, and those analytics get pretty advanced, so things like delta V's across rests, or Coulombic efficiency, or DQDVs, all those things can be reported in tabular form, updating in real time. So no one has to run the Python script manually. Everyone has the same source of truth. Everyone has the same dashboard, configurable based on sort of what views and columns people want to see. And so that's the cells table. And so in addition to auto tables, we also have metadata on the cells. So if you're caring about active material mass, that's something that is configurable on your instance, and you can include active material mass for every cell. And once you have that, then you can graph respective to active material mass, normalized DQDV or capacity or anything like that. So that's all the cell metadata and auto tables.
Yeah, I wish I had this when I was a battery scientist, because researching silicon anode technology, I was doing this interesting experiment where I would weigh the silicon anodes in coin cells before and after cycling to different cycle intervals. And I was having to weigh by hand hundreds of cells and type in, the measurement of the weight into my Excel sheets. And then I just had massive Excel sheets with custom columns for calculations that like multiple sheets. It was just so much to process by hand and manually. And I'm like, I saw this with the auto calculations, and I was like, you could pull in the Coulombic efficiency and the mass and like all the data points that you need, and just be able to do this test over and over and over for hundreds of cells as you need it. So it's just very scalable, right? When you're doing a lot of different types of experiments, or even the same experiment repeatedly.
Yeah, the power of having this sort of the answers right there on the dashboard, instead of an engineer having to, even if it's only, a couple of hours, having to say, oh, well, I'm going to go update, my model and go get the latest data out. It's always up to date. It's always right there.
Yeah. And I was spending days, weeks on that analysis. So I see this and I'm like, oh my goodness, I could have focused on better things. So more things. And let's talk about Ensembles. So this is a advanced analytics feature, right, in the platform?
Yeah, so Ensembles lets you build your own sort of views on your data. And so, it's kind of like a dashboard almost, where you can sort of see a bunch of different ways of looking at, data that matters to you. And so anytime you want to run it and update it, you can just click the button and it gets the latest data, processes it in the way according to your, the way you've configured it, and reports all the tabular numbers and graphs on the screen.
Amazing.
I feel like this is so cool. I feel like there were so many times where even if I remembered to, get coin cells submitted and requests for those submitted to technicians, I'd have so many different things going on that I would forget to like eventually go and check the results, because I'm like, oh, I have to wait a week and eventually I'll remember to do it. But to just be able to like say, hey, I care about these, show me the data on a dashboard every morning when I wake up, and I can see what cycle they're on. And when I get to a cycle I care about, I can do some analyses. That's so cool.
Yeah, just having that every morning, you can check on the real-time data and just see a view of the progress. Like, you're right. Like, if anything goes wrong, you want to catch it right away. You don't want to catch it a month later when the cells are finished with their test. So having these kinds of at-a-glance reports are so useful for that. Awesome. Yeah, and speaking of reports, this is a great segue to the automated report generation, which saves teams so much time. So let's talk about this.
Yeah, so you can configure your own reports in the platform. It's sort of really flexible in terms of what you can do. Lots of different kinds of graphing options and analysis tools. Some pretty advanced, and of course, basic. All the basic stuff is there too. And once that's configured, all the sort of the workflow just becomes select the data and click the button, and out comes a PowerPoint that's ready to go. So this can save massive amounts of time for teams, but it also can sort of speed up decision making quite a bit. because when a team might have waited until the test was done to go work up the PowerPoint report and then sort of pass on the reports, the results to management or decision makers, the decision makers themselves can go sort of check on that report, generate it with the latest data anytime, and read it in a PowerPoint format.
Yeah, not just creating the report too, but for managers who are looking at many reports a day, and maybe it's the same information in the report, but it's updated weekly, having a way to have a template and have a standard way of organizing the data can be so powerful in saving that manager time of looking through the analysis, right? If that's reported to them. And even I feel like there's a big implication here with using these reports, not just within your battery team, but also with like the safety team within your company or within different other organizational groups who need some data visibility on what's going on with the battery R&D or testing or product QA, but don't need all the bells and whistles of having that user view of the platform. Having these standardized template reports could be a good way to keep everyone updated, but not take too much time to organize all of this.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely meet customers where they are. So, some companies have, big standardized processes and, 47-page PowerPoints that are exactly the same every time. And we absolutely can do that. And if it's just, reporting the sort of the tabular values, that's easy to set up, and we can do that too. Sort of anything from large scale global operations where there's labs on the other side of the world and decision makers in this hemisphere, we can support that to small labs with just a few hundred channels and sort of standard ways that they want to look at data. Well, all those things are easy to do.
Love it. Flexibility. That's what we need. And speaking of which, so tell us more about how this integrates into a company's systems.
Yeah, so there's a sort of standard software that runs in the lab that uploads the test data sort of near real time to the cloud. And so then once it's in the cloud, Micantis takes it from there, processes the data, canonicalizes it, so it's standard. So if you have Arbins and Newares and Makors and Biologics and any other brands of testers, we canonicalize all the data. So it becomes independent of the tester. So if you need to, switch to a new version of the test equipment or a different brand, doesn't affect your workflows. So from there, we have the web client, and we also have the a Python API, and sort of a number of ways of grabbing the data out from the server and looking at it, at your desktop, on an iPad, even on your phone. All that's possible.
Wow. On your phone?
It's a little cramped, but you can do it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And it's just amazing how, it really integrates into a system. So a lot of companies already have, an ERP system of choice, or maybe they do still want to use Python or other analytical tools. So this is like a drop-in solution that can integrate with the current systems that the company has.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. So, we absolutely can pull data in from ERP and other kinds of databases and data sources. That's all sort of configurable. Some things are really easy. Some things are harder, and we can work with customers, sort of for custom solutions for more complicated systems. And it drops in sort of alongside. So if you have, standard workflows, if you're running Python scripts too, that's all fine, and Micantis can just drop in alongside and pipe the data through to the Micantis client as well. And so doesn't have to be a hard switch or even a complete switch. We can augment your current systems.
Yeah. And if you're go ahead, Michaela. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to say, I feel like another thing that's really cool is how, my experience was, we had a bunch of Arbin cyclers, and then we eventually bought some new ones that were Newware, and that completely destroyed basically all of our data analysis systems and scripts, and took months to figure out how to get it to work seamlessly for cells running on either one and compare them in the same way. And this makes it so easy to deal with all of the intricacies of Arbin versus Newware versus other platforms. without, the engineers having to spend any time or frustration on that.
That's a really good point. Because, yeah, especially at any stage of development, a battery company often has multiple types of cyclers, and there's just a lot of data and coming from a lot of sources. And so being able to just put it in one spot and analyze it in a synced way, even across global operations, is so important. And that's, brings us to our next slide here, where it can support quite like any tester equipment, basically, right, Jonathan? It could be configured to support.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you offer like the on-cloud solutions or even on-premises if a company wishes to go in that direction.
If security is, is a serious enough concern, there's overhead involved with going on-prem, but that's a possible solution that's appropriate for some customers.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get into the use case of the multi-location support too. We'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah. Michaela, did you want to add something? Sorry, I feel like I cut you off. Okay. Just making sure. I love your insights. Like, it's so true that there's so many battery data challenges, and this, I can think of so many. So I appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so going into the case studies now, so these are real life scenarios where Micantis is currently being used. And let's talk about the first one with a cell manufacturer. So they have a pilot line. They're developing a new cell chemistry, so totally innovative. And they need to perform formation analysis on a ton of cells, hundreds of cells per month, and optimize their cell performance and make data-driven decisions quickly. So tell us a bit about this scenario, Jonathan.
Yeah, so this uses, they use our auto tables feature. And so we help them configure the views that they want. They're empowered to sort of go modify them or add new ones as much as they'd like. Not everyone wants to go to that level of depth. And so we certainly offer service, around configuring things for each customer. And so they have, I think about 100 different metrics that they pull out of the formation analysis, a bunch of KPIs, and with upper and lower spec limits on each one that vary depending on the kind of cell it is. And all of that is configured in the platform so that when you look at the table, you can filter for a specific batch of cells, and you can look and say, oh, that one's green, oh, that one's red. And so, failures, even more sort of detailed, nuanced, harder to calculate metrics, are really clear and obvious. Which is, something we've seen, is when these things aren't automated, mistakes are guaranteed. Humans are just not designed to do the same thing 1,000 times. And so, mistakes happen, and it's hard to say, how much that affects. Definitely is an improvement to go into automated systems.
Yeah, and there's also something to be said about a lot of these companies as they're starting out. There's resource constraints, of course, but maybe they have like one person who's in charge of getting all the data to everyone else and has to arrive, at the wee hours of the morning just to get everything set up.
Right, you're reminding me of at this customer, there is a guy that, shows up every day, was a guy. I mean, he's still there. He just doesn't have to wake up at 4 a.m. and go to work and prepare the, updated Excel spreadsheets for the management team to review at their 9 a.m. meeting. And so now that all happens instantly and is updated even throughout the day. So, anytime someone needs to go look at these KPIs, they're available.
Yeah, so we're seeing their team saving so much time on not having to do these data uploads every day. And they have this organized cell metadata management, as well as those auto tables for those automatic calculation views of the formation data so they can make decisions quickly based on what they're seeing in real time. And so you really get that increased efficiency across their operation. Do you see any other benefits you want to comment on for this scenario? Covers it all?
Yeah, did I miss anything?
I think that's all,
I feel like for me, the one thing that is really cool, as you said, perhaps touched on earlier, but there are so many like kind of new companies in the battery space, and a lot of them kind of start out on this cell R&D where they're testing maybe 100 to 1,000 cells at a time, right? And that kind of involves using one system. But then as you go into pilot lines and manufacturing, you know, a lot of the times the systems that you've had for R&D don't scale up to manufacturing. So now everybody has to learn something new, and the systems that your R&D cells are on are different than your pilot line or manufacturing line. And it's cool that kind of Micantis can bridge all of those scales and make scale up more efficient, which is, I think, a huge thing in the industry right now.
Exactly. You know, you make me think of in my days of working as an engineer in a battery company with a pilot line, there were circumstances where all of a sudden, like, battery performance just tanked. It was doing horribly. And we're just like, what happened? Like, we didn't change anything, right? But then the whole team is like, you know, assembled, and we're like, okay, we got to look at what's going wrong or what's different, down to, you know, which operators are working on what days, what was the weather like outside, what was the temperature, is there something correlated with the data that caused this? And, you know, in that circumstance, we took months to look through all this data to try to find what it was. It ended up not even being us. It was a material supplier changed a process. But it's those kinds of instances where you want to be able to access your data quickly and understand what's going on so that your downtime is reduced from maybe months to just a couple of days, perhaps. So that kind of data visibility is all that more powerful for moving quickly, because companies are going to run into challenges. Like, nothing's going to happen perfectly, right? And it's more about, are you prepared for when an issue arises that you're able to address that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'd love to now shift to talking about the product OEM use case. So this is different. They're not manufacturing the cells, right? But they're performing the quality assessments on them, checking if the batteries are safe, their performances are aligned. So, and this product company is like #1 in their area. They go through over 1 million cells per month for QA. It's a high volume operation globally. So Jonathan, tell us more about the challenges that this type of customer can experience.
Yeah, so so bringing Micantis into this customer, absolutely we met some challenges and sort of helped them with some major challenges. And so so what this did fundamentally was created global visibility onto their operations for the customer. So the decision maker in North America can see what's happening in China and understand, what's being done specifically. And communication is still difficult, right? Communication is a real roadblock. And so being able to sort of see the data, so what the customer was doing before was, the labs on the other side of the world would, produce PowerPoint reports of the results. That report would take a technician about a day to produce. And so we reduced that time to on about a minute to produce that report. And also, sort of gave a lot more visibility. For example, we caught a case where sometimes the lab ran the test at the wrong current level. And that didn't really show up in the PowerPoint report because they weren't reporting the current level, because the current level was a requirement, a spec, not a result. And so the management team had no idea. So all these cells were always passing, and so they didn't know why, and it was because the current level was wrong. So the visibility, global visibility, has made a really big difference to this customer.
Yeah, and I just got the correction. It's not 1 million cells per month, but 30 million cells per month. So even more, and yet Micantis can support those kinds of, so much cell data that they're having to throughput. And yeah, I've seen in product companies that have that high throughput, there's a lot of challenges, especially with types of technology more on like the consumer electronics side, where they're having to reconfigure battery packs for different types of products. Like maybe they have a whole product line of different consumer devices. And so it's like, how are you able to communicate, first of all, set the standard for the quality of the battery and the products uniformly, globally. And then there's the question of, how are you able to give that data visibility to managers who could be, in the United States when the processing is going on in China or Vietnam or wherever it may be. And then even like I was working once with a safety team who wanted visibility over the safety of the batteries as they're being processed and making sure that they're being compliant with the different regulations. And they didn't have the visibility into the factories in other parts of the world to understand that picture more and needed a better process. So these are big challenges, and this comes down to consumer safety, like our safety when it comes to using these products. And the biggest, the R word, the recall that no company wants to go through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so for this customer, right, somebody in North America can, of course, get the reports so they can get them, faster so that they don't have to wait, until the test is done to generate the report. They can do in progress reports because it doesn't take a whole person day to generate that report. So they can make decisions faster. But they also can say, oh, hey, that looks funny. Let me go look at that data set, right? And then you can go look at the as detailed as you want and see what actually happened during that test, not just what, the technician is reporting, because, the technician presumably thinks they did the right thing, and communication, again, can be difficult.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, is when you have global operations, when you're using a platform or some kind of tool, it needs to not just be, consistent across operations, but it has to be pretty intuitive for people with, different cultural backgrounds who speak different languages to interface. And that's something that I think Micantis does well in providing the right kinds of training and support to make sure that people in different parts of the world can access and make use of the platform quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a challenging few years, and we've definitely had to deliver on those needs for, some large customers.
Yeah, yeah. Important, right? The battery industry is global, so you have to have that global perspective. And feel free, we're about to transition to the Q&A portion, so I see some questions coming into the chat. Keep those coming. Yeah, any last thoughts about this case study that you'd like to share with people who are tuning in? Yeah, I think we basically covered it. Faster reporting, the improved accuracy, reducing the labor costs, and saving everyone a lot of time and headache across operations. So thanks for sharing. And I guess let me now shift to the Q&A. So thank you for everyone for coming along on this webinar journey, I should say. No, I hope you've enjoyed it and learned a couple things along the way. So as we move into Q&A, I'm wondering, how does Micantis provide that flexibility and affordability for companies at different stages of scaling?
Yeah, so we offer, different pricing tiers with different levels of functionality that are suitable, for anything from, a small lab that's just getting started with, a new technology to, large global operations, pilot scale lines, and, anything in between.
Amazing. Yeah. We have a question. How do your algorithms work in terms of tracking prognostics? How good are they with real world data, since most of algorithms are trained on controlled environment data?
Yeah, so the word, trained sort of makes me think here. So there are lots of things that are possible to do with the data. And so we make it accessible, and we make it, and you can sort of graph it and look at correlations. We don't have, a neural network or anything like that, right? So we're not trying to be a black box that predicts the future. That's not what we do. We certainly provide a platform where you can hook up your, Python script, Python algorithm that has, any neural network library you'd like, and you can sort of pull over all that data and train your library to do any kind of analytics. And there are other tools that can integrate with our platform along those lines. But so we want to make the sort of simple stuff that seems simple, that's not actually that simple. We want to make it easy for you. And so there's not any kind of artificial, it's not a machine, not a neural network algorithm in there.
Yeah, and it's It's interesting when I talk to companies about, oh, they want to do AI or they want to do these advanced algorithms. And, Micantis could be a stepping stone towards those advanced analytics tools. So, Jonathan, from your perspective, how does investing in Micantis now help companies set up for long-term success if they want to use these advanced analytics tools like AI and ML and machine learning?
Absolutely. I think the first rule of AI and ML is garbage in, garbage out. And so what we can help with, in addition to, providing sort of a platform on which, we can sort of deliver solutions for customer. We provide a platform where customers can sort of really up their game in terms of quality and visibility and understanding, and getting reliability and consistency of testing. And so, once you have that and you've got your data sort of safe in one location, organized and categorized, with all its metadata there, then it becomes the actual, AI ML, which we can provide custom solutions for, by the way. We're absolutely happy to work with customers on specific needs. But it becomes, I wouldn't want to say trivial, but it becomes the hard part is cleaning and prepping the data for these models. And that's what we do.
Yeah, just having it organized.
Just gonna echo that my experience with training any AI or ML on cell data is that compiling the data in one place from all the different sources, cleaning it, takes like at least 60% of the time. And then once you're there, it does become a lot easier to kind of train these really nice, good models on clean data. So it's really cool that solution is provided.
Yeah, can you talk more about what you mean by cleaning data for that?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is that, you have 100,000 different cells and maybe 30 of them are bad, but you feed those 30 or 40 or 100 bad cells and bad data in, and it's going to totally skew your results. So figuring out how to filter that data out, how to filter out the data that you want to train on, whether it be certain testing conditions or any sort of particular case, just being able to easily filter that, I think, makes everybody's life a lot easier.
Yeah, and there's stitching tools for data within the platform, right, Jonathan, or different kinds of data cleaning tools. Could you talk more about that?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the common workflows we make sort of incredibly easy. So, one thing that happens is, test gets interrupted, or you have to move a cell to a different channel or something like that. And so you end up with two files. One with the first 50 cycles and one with the, last 550 or whatever. And so, that we make, and it seems like, oh, that would be really simple. You just, concatenate the data sets, but you got to get the cycle numbers right and the line numbers and, the capacity and the cycles where you're you're split a cycle across two data sets, and you got to go look at that. And so, we make that instantaneous, seamless, and you can stitch the files while the test is still in progress. So if that second or third data set is still in progress, that's fine. It'll continue, the stitch data set will continue to update as that test runs.
Amazing. That's so nice. It's so hard to copy and paste and try to get your graph together in Excel. So that's such a nice feature to have to clean up your data quickly.
It's a great example of something that's, not relatively simple on the surface, but then when you get into actually doing it, can be a really huge time suck.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got another question about a battery digital twin, comparing this to that. How would Micantis differ then from a digital twin platform that we see today?
Yeah, so, a digital twin is, a model that's full level complexity, right? Trying to understand what's going on in the real world by modeling it and developing a model that matches as closely as possible. That, again, our platform can really help you with clean, organized data to do something like that. And there are lots of digital twins, available. A lot of digital twin kind of models available. There's some Python ones, and there's some sort of standard off-the-shelf ones that get used. And so, we do have an electrochemical model in the software. That's the closest thing to a digital twin. And that does provide a lot of the insights that you could get from a digital twin. It is designed more around understanding how the battery is operating and understanding the model, and less around being sort of as complex as possible, if that makes sense. So we try to sort of engineers, and very, without, they're, usually pretty smart, and they usually want to understand exactly how a tool works. And so that's what we've tried to do, is, again, stay away from magic and try to have everything be transparent. And so we do have a relatively advanced electrochemical physics-based model that does that, but we sort of try to shy away from, strict neural network kind of machine learning black box, because well, I won't go into that.
Yeah. So Micantis is more of that platform before you maybe shift the data into a digital twin platform or into an electrochemical model that Micantis has on site, right? Or within the platform. So if you want to make sure your data is clean, that you're feeding into that digital twin platform, say, you could provide that connectivity.
Absolutely. So we have an API that you can access with Python, or sort of any language you want. It's a REST API, and that data is all canonicalized and cleaned as however you sort of use our cleaning tools. The data that you get through the API will be cleaned in the way you've cleaned it, and it'll all be real time, up to date, and accessible anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and I've seen issues with companies who want to go and build a digital twin of their battery, but depending on the stage of development and understanding of their battery system, they may not know what data is most important to include in that model, or what are the trade-offs in how your model is configured for that digital twin. And so when it comes to kind of, instead of jumping from I have my battery raw data into a digital twin platform, taking some time to use a platform like Micantis with its powerful data analytics tools to understand more about the data you're getting, to organize it, to compute it, do those calculations, is a huge step towards creating that digital twin model that's more representative of your system, and making sure you have the right data to inform that digital twin model. That's an important step, I think a lot of people may jump over, not really spend too much time on, but then they'll have to backtrack and validate the model even more. And so we can help with helping that learning curve for that digital twin creation.
Absolutely. And the electrochemical model is a great step towards, also designed around understanding what's going on in your battery.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, thank you so much, everyone who tuned in and asked so many questions. We could take a couple more, but while I have a kind of gap between the questions, I just want to share that for those who tuned in today, the special offer is that we're happy to provide a free trial for qualifying companies who would like to test the platform themselves. So please do email us at info@micantis.io, and we can talk about getting you started with a free trial. This is a limited period where you and your team can interface with the tool, play around with it, see what you think about it. And we're here to help answer your questions and guide you through that as well. So please, again, reach out to us if you'd like to try the free trial. Excited to see companies engaging with it. And in addition, I'll also say, for those companies who are interested in exploring more about next steps with Micantis, what are the next steps, Jonathan, for companies getting to know the platform more?
Yeah, so of course, contact us. So so we can provide sort of a personalized live demo of the software. We can answer questions and sort of talk about how we can help, or if we can help. And then after that, of course, the free trial is, from there, I think it's pretty simple to get started on the platform. Like we said earlier, we can deploy it alongside existing solutions. So, there is not really a lot of commitment because our customers stick around because they like the product, not because they're in a contract.
Yeah. Monthly contract, right?
That's
Wow.
right. Yeah.
That's nice to have that flexibility, especially as, companies at different stages of growth have different needs and different, ways that they could commit to certain systems. So we really want to help them at whatever stage that they're at in their process of developing. Yeah, I love it. I think, this is all we have to share today. And Jonathan, Michaela, do you want to share any final thoughts with those who tuned in?
Reach out, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, and we'll be at AABC next week, at least on this call, Michaela and I will. So if you're attending the Advanced Automotive Battery Conference in Las Vegas next week, check out booth 506. We have some fun stuff there, and we can always, it's always great to meet people in person. So would love to see you there. If you're joining, feel free to reach out and email us if you are. And again, contact Micantis if you have any questions. And thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.